Hello, welcome. I'm Martine Croxall. Well, there's been a reaction to the plan by Benjamin Netanyahu's security cabinet to approve a military operation to remove people from Gaza City. And the UK Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has issued a statement in the last few minutes. He says the Israeli government's decision to further escalate its offensive in Gaza is wrong and we urge it to reconsider immediately. This action will do nothing to bring an end to this conflict or to help secure the release of the hostages. It will only bring more bloodshed. It goes on, every day the humanitarian crisis in Gaza worsens and hostages taken by Hamas are being held in appalling, inhuman conditions. What we need is a ceasefire, a surge in humanitarian aid, the release of all hostages by Hamas and a negotiated solution. Hamas can play no part in the future of Gaza and must leave as well as disarm. And then it concludes by saying, together with our allies, we're working on a long-term plan to secure peace in the region as part of a two-state solution and ultimately achieve a brighter future for Palestinians and Israelis. But without both sides engaging in good faith in negotiations, that prospect is vanishing before our eyes. Our message is clear. A diplomatic solution is possible, but both parties must step away from the path of destruction. Well, that statement is in response to Benjamin Netanyahu's plan for a full-scale occupation of Gaza City, including the disarmament of Hamas and the return of all hostages, as well as the relocation of 1 million of Gaza City's residents further south. Well, as his cabinet met to discuss the plans, the Israeli authorities used water cannon on protesters calling for an end to the war, including from the families of hostages still being held by Hamas. Meanwhile, Israel's military chief has warned against the widening of the war, saying that troops could get trapped in the territory and the remaining hostages could be harmed. The UN called any possible expansion of Israel's operations deeply alarming. Well, Israeli forces are already in around 75% of Gaza after nearly 2 years of war, with Mr. Netanyahu under intense international pressure to agree a ceasefire deal. In a statement, Mr. Netanyahu's office outlined plans to occupy the Strip, adopting 5 principles for ending the war, which are: first, the disarmament of Hamas; second, the return of all hostages, both living and dead; the demilitarisation of the Gaza Strip; Israeli security control over the Gaza Strip; and finally, the Israeli government wants an alternative civilian government that is not Hamas or the Palestinian Authority. Our reporter Simon Jones has more.
As the Israeli security cabinet was meeting, protests on the streets. Among them, the friends and families of the hostages still being held by Hamas. They say increased military action in Gaza will put their lives at risk. In Tel Aviv, police used water cannon to try to disperse the crowds. But in the early hours, the worst fears of those demonstrating were realised. The Prime Minister's office said the Israeli military will take control of Gaza City, something Benjamin Netanyahu had earlier spoken about on Fox News.
In order to assure our security, remove Hamas there, enable the population to be free of Gaza, and to pass it to civilian governance that is not Hamas and not anyone advocating the destruction of Israel.
These are what the Israeli cabinet is calling the principles for ending the war. The disarmament of Hamas, the return of all hostages, both living and dead, the demilitarisation of the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control over the Gaza Strip, and the existence of an alternative civilian government that is not Hamas or the Palestinian Authority. With growing anger over the situation in Gaza, the move is likely to isolate further Israel on the international stage. This man, Mahmoud Ali Al-Jed, cannot believe the worst may yet still be to come.
They have already occupied Gaza. Wherever you go, it's occupied. What more will they do? They have occupied and destroyed Gaza. If you go towards the sea, it's destroyed. Everywhere you turn, there is destruction. There is no safe place. We are exhausted. How long will this war go on?
Aid being airdropped into Gaza City this week, home to hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. They may be ordered to leave before Israel's planned massive offensive. Israel says it will be providing humanitarian aid to the civilian population outside the combat zones. But the UN has warned that expanding military operations risk catastrophic consequences for Palestinian civilians and Israeli hostages alike. Simon Jones, BBC News.
Our Middle East correspondent Hugo Bashega is in Jerusalem. He says Netanyahu's decision has already faced backlash.
It was a very long meeting of the Security Cabinet, which I think is an indication of the divisions inside the government. And we've seen that there has been strong opposition from the leader of the military. Reports this morning suggest that there was some heated discussions between the Prime Minister and the military's Chief of Staff, who is against the idea of expanding military operations in Gaza and also the idea of a full occupation of Gaza. He's been warning about the possible catastrophic humanitarian consequences in Gaza. Around 1 million people leaving those areas. Many of them have been displaced multiple times, and there is the expectation that ahead of any military incursion, these people will be forced again to leave those areas. He also expressed concern about the impact on the military. This is an army that is exhausted after almost 2 years of conflict. And he warned the Prime Minister that, the full takeover of Gaza would be a trap for Israel. And this is very much the position of the families of the hostages who remain in captivity in Gaza. They say that military pressure hasn't really worked, that this is a failed strategy, and they've been urging the Prime Minister to strike a deal with Hamas for the hostages to be freed. 20 hostages are believed to remain alive in Gaza, and they are believed to be held in those areas where the military doesn't have a significant presence. And yesterday, I thought it was interesting that there was a report by an Israeli newspaper saying that the internal assessment is that most, if not all, hostages will die in any expansion of military activity, either killed by their captors or accidentally by Israeli forces. So this is very much the position of the families of the hostages who are against any kind of expanded military offensive. And finally, polls in Israel have been consistent in suggesting that the vast majority of the public is in favor of a deal with Hamas and for the war to end. And many people in this country have been accusing the Prime Minister of prolonging the conflict in Gaza for political purposes to guarantee the survival of his governing coalition.
Hugo Bashega in Jerusalem.